Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour UFC Halifax DraftKings picks and preview. In studio with me, the loser of 2 consecutive weeks. It's Cody Saftic.
Man, that last week was total BS, man. I mean, first of all,
We
the
got
guys...
screwed by Holly Holm.
No, it wasn't even that. Tarbura, who was going to be our lock, his opponent's like, I'm 300 pounds, I can't make weight, so he's off. If he had just made it, surely that would have been a first-round stoppage. And then Ian McCall wakes up sick, causing our other play, Jared Brooks, to fall off, so... I feel like we got an unfair play. We were scrambling late. We had a couple awful decisions. Who cares? It's in the past. We're moving on to Pat's hometown of Halifax.
Yes. Like you mentioned, everyone's going to be having a time in Halifax. That's why there can't be a UFC next week.
It's too much of a time.
People are going to be having too much fun in Halifax. Although I think they just got I want to say 6 feet of snow.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there's a couple Brazilian guys on the card, and they came out 2 weeks early, and they got there, and then there's pictures of them next to the highway, Canada's not so bad. We like Canada. And then this week, apparently, they've been Canada's the worst place on the planet.
Yeah, my parents got snowed in. They're fine now.
I feel bad for the people who have never been to Canada. This might be their first pint-sized taste. They fly over from wherever they're from, they get here, and they just assume that Halifax speaks for the rest of the country, when really it's, not that bad to throw it. But hey, bred in Nova Scotia, one Patrick Mayo.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay. You can get out.
Yes.
Teachers are all on strike in Nova Scotia. It's terrible news.
You can also get out if you go to Fort McMurray.
Not so much anymore.
Oh, no, the oil sands.
I think if the Keystone Pipeline comes in, they're looking a lot better.
Well,
that's just my take on it.
We'll see. That's just your hot take.
Hey, good for business.
Hey, you're
Great business.
You're the politics guy. I'm the MMA guy.
So I will say, they got 80 centimeters over the last 3 days. They had 8 centimeters for the rest of the winter before that. Just boom, nailed. Never seen anything like it before.
There's a lot of road closures. I wonder if these guys will have trouble getting to the sauna, getting to the weigh-ins, getting to the venue. Who knows?
I get it. Everything's really concentrated. So if they're staying in Halifax, it's even in the worst snowstorm, it'd take 10 minutes to get to the arena.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, let's hear your cash team.
Okay, cash team. Starting out, we're going to go super safe. Paul Felder. Honestly, $9,500.
Felder? Hardly knew her.
Felder is very expensive at $9,500.
I'm going to ask you this because I saw a whole bunch of buzz about this from other MMA analysts who do DraftKings, all this stuff. Your boy Mike Ricci, or where the hell his name is. People like him a little bit.
Yeah, Alexandro Ricci.
Sure.
Alessandro. Okay, Alex Ricci. I actually match-made a couple of his pro fights. Substance Cage Combat, he fought for us. Matched him up against most notably EJ Brooks. Now, the thing with Alex Ricci is he comes from a Muay Thai background. He's a Canadian Muay Thai champion. He actually lived and trained full-time in Thailand for 3 years. Trained at Range Maduran Stadium. Fought at Range Maduran Stadium, I should say. Fought at the highest level, right? Has something like a 38-12-1 record, well traveled. Now he decides, okay, there's not really much money in in Muay Thai at the time. I can't really find fights in Muay Thai at the time.
Is there money in Muay Thai now?
No, but at least since then, lion fights cropped up.
There's more.
Glory's cropped up, which is not Muay Thai, it's kickboxing. However, there's more opportunities for guys that just want to do stand-up. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities, so he switched over. He spent a lifetime trying to build up this takedown defense because every time he fights a guy, they're just I'm just going to take him down. And they dump him to the ground, Since then, now his takedown defense is really good. But I don't think his striking has really improved over that time because he spent so much time working on his grappling. He's getting a matchup here from Paul Felder. That's a picture-perfect matchup for him in the sense that Paul Felder very rarely looks to take anybody down. He likes getting into stand-up exchanges. He likes to getting into brawls, so to speak. So this would be a perfect matchup for Ricci. But if you just go look at tape of Ricci's last couple kickboxing matches, his Muay Thai matches, against guys that are just doing Muay Thai, guys like Dave Zuniga from Manitoba, he's getting knocked out. You can beat him with the body, you can beat him with the head. He's never been knocked out in MMA. However, it's something like his last 9 or 10 fights have all gone to decision. So he's likely, even in victory, he's just going to have to squeak one out, best case scenario. And if he loses, then it's hard to put him away. Don't get me wrong. I've seen this guy get dropped by Jesse Ronson. I've seen him in tough situations. He's fought a number of UFC veterans. He's fought guys like Ryan Healy. He's fought guys like Daryl Horcher. He's a tough guy. But Paul Felder's another level. So Paul Felder's a big favorite for the reason. I don't like the $9,500 whatsoever, but it's a tailor-made matchup for Felder, too, considering no one's going to be trying to take him down either. So I like him. I like him a lot on cash game.
All right, and you have Elias on the team. Are we just going Team Elias every time that he's on?
No, not necessarily. In fact, I was actually just discussing it with director A-Rap prior to the show starting that Elias, best case scenario, you're looking like 50 points for him because
He's only $8,000 now. That's not the end of the world.
That's why I can justify it on a cash team, because if he gets 50 points in victory, then I'm happy with that. He's basically even money going into this fight against Cesar Mutanche Ferreira. It's going to be a close fight. I myself am kind of favoring Mutanche. However, there's no denying that even if Mutanche is able to beat Elias, it's probably going to go to 3 rounds. So he's safe on a cash game in that regard. Also, it's at home, and he's a guy that just outworks opponents. Outworks opponents to the tune that he might not be doing much, but the crowd's behind him, the momentum's behind him, the feeling and the atmosphere's behind him.
So is it...
They'll just get the nod.
Is it the sort of thing where maybe you're watching at home, and let's say you're watching with the sound off, it looks like he might lose the fight, but if you're judging it sitting next to the cage and you hear the arena behind the guy, it kind of seems like he wins?
Yeah, okay, so on that note, I'm actually cutting tape on Elias the other day, and I go back to his last fight, which is against Sam Alvey. Now, he fought Sam Alvey in Ottawa, I believe, back in June or July, so the summer, right?
Alvey the racist dragon?
No, different. Sam Alvey's the guy. Yeah, the racist dragon, because he's fighting racists. Yeah, good one. Okay, Alvey's fought 4 times since then, and won 4 times since then. So Alvey's competed a whole lot, and Elias hasn't. Remember when UFC came to Toronto and you were asking me, people were asking me, is Elias going to be on the card? No. Well, why not? He's actually trying to get on the card, but they didn't use him. Now, whether that's because he doesn't really have the most fan-friendly style, I don't know. However, he does match up good in this spot. But to get back to my story, I'm cutting tape on him, and I'm looking at that fight with Sam Alvey. And I decided, okay, I'm going to get the high points. Going through the entire fight, there's very, very, very few high points. He throws a crane kick that gets like a partial shot out of it, and he mostly just throws some kicks. If you watch it with the sound off in two times the speed, okay? Sam Alvey tracks him down for most of the time and is just swinging at him, dictates the pace, definitely goes for it. Sam Alvey lost that 30-27. And I'm not saying he won that fight. I'm saying in the moment, it's like, oh man, he's just getting outworked so bad, he's getting evaded so bad, but nothing actually happened. It's just that there's that persuasion. So in a spot like this, if he goes out there and he lands, say, 40 of those kicks, I'm going to get 20 points off that. If he gets the victory...
You get another 30.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at around 50 points. Now, the one thing that he does have in his back pocket, he's not really much of a power puncher. He's not really much of a guy that's going to go out there in a stand-and-bang situation, stand in front of you, hit you, knock you out. However, Cesar Mutanche Ferreira, despite being on a 3-fight winning streak currently, is known as a chinny opponent. He has been knocked out 3 times in the UFC, 4 times in his career. All 4 of those times were in the first round, I believe. So there is that possibility that Elias just lands on him or takes him into deep water, breaks him down, pounds him out late. There is that possibility. So I think that in a defeat, he's going to last the decision, get some points. In a victory, 50 to 70 points on a cash game for $8,000 in.
All right. Who else? Who's like a lock here?
Eamon's a hobby. Lock of all locks.
Okay.
$8,800, fairly priced. I think he's only something like a $245 favorite on the betting line, so I think that's also pretty well.
0 average DraftKings points.
Yes, this is his UFC debut. Actually, only 6 fights into his professional career whatsoever.
How many amateur fights?
Something like 3 or 4. He actually fought a good friend of mine, Derek Charbonneau. Beat him up.
Did he beat him?
Yeah. But Charbonneau, even to this day, always tells people, like, I'm the only guy to get out of the first round with him. That's like a badge of honor in itself. It's like,
so it's like the, was it Demetrius Johnson? Is he the guy?
Flyweight champion?
It was someone like, or maybe it's Anthony Johnson. Who's the one who just kills everyone? The guy from like Africa, trained in France. Who's that guy?
Oh, Francis Ngannou.
Yeah. The one guy that we were talking about like 2 weeks ago, maybe it was Brunson.
Yeah.
Like,
Curtis Blades.
I got out of the first round.
I went 2 rounds with this guy. Got my ass kicked, but I went 2. Exactly. You ever seen the movie? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on it. I want to say The Fighter, but it's about Mickey Ward.
Yeah, The Fighter.
Yeah, okay, The Fighter. Mickey Ward. Dickie Eklund. That whole movie. Doesn't matter where his life goes. Doesn't matter what happens to him. Good times, bad times. Doesn't matter. It's always like, drop Sugar Ray. You know, like that's all that matters, right? I think this is very much the same thing.
I actually feel that way.
Survived.
I actually feel that way about Conor if he ends up fighting Mayweather. He could get dropped in like the first second of the first round. Probably Floyd's just gonna be like.
I can't imagine that happening.
The fact that he's in the fight will do more for his career than anything else.
Well, I mean, $50 million in your bank account
Yeah,
will probably
that's
do
what I mean.
more for you than anything else.
Sure, but that's a product of being in the fight.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what happens in the fight, he wins.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, here's the thing with Zahabi, right? Zahabi, most known little brother of Faraz Zahabi. Faraz Zahabi, most known as the head coach for Georges St. Pierre. Georges St. Pierre recently apparently in talks to come back to the UFC, and he himself will tell you straight up, Eamon Zahabi's the best prospect in MMA. Thing is I don't really consider this guy a prospect because he's 29 years old. Only 6 fights in his career, 29 years old, making his UFC debut here. The thing is that they know how good this guy is, so they never bothered to put him on a showcase fight. They never bothered to throw them out there. They never bothered to be like, let's make him fight a UFC veteran for $1,000 out in Edmonton. Why bother?
So they sent him to Halifax?
No. Well, he's fighting in the UFC now.
Okay.
He's going to make $10,000 base, Plus, if he wins here, and I very much expect him to win, he's going to make another $10,000.
Knockout win? Knockout of the night?
Knockout of submission, that'd be another $50, and he's going to make $2,500 from Reebok for wearing the shorts and the shirt. Anyways, I think he's good here. Like I said, only 6 fights into his career, but he's finished all 6 of those. Amateur career, finished those guys as well. If you talk to people that have trained at TriStar, TriStar is known for, like, not a mecca, but that's the place in Canada. That's where all the Canadian guys go, but that's where a lot of international guys go, and a lot of U.S. guys go. And everyone that goes there, at some point or another, has to deal with Amin Zahabi. And at that point, they realize this guy's for real. But we can only go from what we see on tape. And there's not a whole lot on tape. And for that reason, I think he's only $8,800 because the odds makers are thinking, I'm not going to take a shot on a kid from word of mouth. I've never seen him. We've never seen him. Reginaldo Vieira is 34. He's experienced. He's got 3 times as many fights, and he won Tough Brazil season 3 or 4. Doesn't matter. But at least he's an experienced guy. He can pose some problems. I just don't expect him to. And the thing with Zahabi is, all 6 of those finishes are in the first round. But if you watch him fight, he's ultra patient. It almost is just like he's just flowing, just waiting for the moment to happen.
He's the Phil Jackson of fighting, the Zen master.
You've got like 2 options. It's like option A, shoot a takedown on him, end up on your back. Option B, stand in front of, throw a punch, he just counters it and zaps you. Don't throw a punch, he hits you and zaps you. Don't do anything, maybe he takes you down. If it goes on the ground, he's so well-versed, he's so well-rounded. And it's not like he's taking on a top contender. He's taking on a guy that's 34, in my opinion, over the hill, overachieved to begin with, trains out of a small gym, and is coming to Canada from Brazil to presumably play sheep to a good prospect in Amin Zahabi. I like him all the way through. I've played him on cash. I've played him on GPP. Could this blow up in my face? Yeah, this is MMA we're talking about. But he's being put in a position here to succeed for a reason.
How many Canadians are on this card?
Quite a few.
A lot?
Yeah, quite a few. I don't expect him to have the best night overall, but if there's one lock Canadian that should look good, it's him. Between the other ones, Lias could win. It's going to be a tough fight. Ronda Marcos could win. It's going to be a tough fight. Ricci, that's a tough fight. Ryan James, that's a tough fight. There are going to be tough fights for the Canadians.
Gavin Tucker makes the team at $8,400.
Yeah, $8,400. I did play him on cash and GPP, but buyer beware. If you're going to play multiple lineups, don't play them all over the place. Don't look at this like, oh, I'm so confident in him that I'm down to play him everywhere. But $8,400, he's very well priced. He's taking on Sam Cecilia. Now, the issue for me here is that Sam Cecilia has 11 UFC fights to his credit. Gavin Tucker has 9 professional fights to his credit. So you've got a guy that's got more UFC experience than the other guy's got MMA experience altogether. Gavin Tucker's 30. He's from Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland.
Oh, God. Let's not take this guy.
He's the local guy.
Listen, I'm from this area. Don't take people from this area.
Okay, well...
We have to rework this team.
We might.
Who else do we have at like 8,400?
Are you really this much against him? You're against your own people.
Listen, I know the loser stink that's on the east coast of Canada. I'm from it. I have it. I know how this works.
Yeah, that's fair, but...
Remember when Kirk Johnson fought Lennox Lewis for the heavyweight title?
Kirk Johnson made it to the highest level.
The only thing he could do was punch him in the nuts, and then he got disqualified.
It was a tough outing. Kirk Johnson is an East Coast legend, by the way.
Who else do we have? We had Tyson Cave.
Tyson Cave is the king of Hali. Everybody knows that.
Was he actually good?
He got robbed out of a world title.
Did he?
Oh, yeah. But then the thing is, I think smoking 2 packs of cigs a day is going to catch up to you.
Well, that's what everyone on the East Coast does. Look, listen, I am indicative of how people live on the East Coast. We can stay in good shape, but we're all smoking. We're all drinking.
That's a fair point. Okay. Just mind me on this. Let me just get through this and we can make a decision together. Gavin Tucker making his UFC debut here. The UFC did not sign this guy because of his skill on the international level. I have him currently ranked as the number 5 guy in Canada.
At his weight?
At his weight.
Okay.
There's
Paul!
Paul's there. One of those 5
What's
guys.
What's Paul at his weight?
What's his weight?
I don't know, 320?
Oh, jeez.
Just cut down Paul.
That was fucking harsh, man. Gavin, you're just harsh today.
I am. I'm coming in steamrolling.
Jesus. Okay, so with Gavin Tucker, he's number 5 in Canada at his weight. One of those 5 guys is, by the way, signed to the UFC. The other 4, technically speaking, free agents, with Hakeem Dawodu being the best guy, being World Series of Fighting. But Gavin Tucker is tough domestically, not tough internationally. Of his 9 wins, he's fought 3 times in the last 4 years. The biggest win of his career came back in 2013 against a guy that fights at 135 pounds. This is 145 pounds. When you look at his record on paper, there's not a whole lot to be excited about. However, and as you could probably attest to, there's not any opportunities out east. So he just doesn't really have the opportunities to showcase his skills. But he's a brown belt in BJJ. I've seen the guy grapple, and he's very good. He's very physically strong. And the guy comes from a traditional martial arts background and has a very good left high kick. He's knocked out a couple opponents with that left high kick. He's a finisher by trait. He's a very aggressive dude. Do I think this guy can succeed in the UFC and be a champion? No. Do I think this guy can succeed in the UFC and be a top 15? That would be best case scenario for him. But when you're taking on a guy who, as I mentioned, has 11 fights in the UFC, but has a 5-6 record in 11 fights in the UFC, then can you win the one fight at home where they're signing you specifically to get the crowd fired up at home against a guy who has 6 losses in the UFC, whose 5 wins in the UFC, 4 of those guys are cut? He is the definition of a journeyman, and that is not a bad thing. People often discredit journeyman. That is not a bad thing. If you look back to when the word was written 100 years ago, in the boxing terms, it's just a tough guy, shows up, gets the crowd fired up, puts in his round. Sam Cecily is that should be for Gavin Tucker. Does Tucker succeed beyond this? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Should he leave the East Coast to train? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. He's gone to 9-0 where he's at.
I'd say yes.
But can he get the crowd fired up right here for $8,400, which is why I played him fairly well priced in. And finally, worst case scenario for him, he might get overwhelmed and pounded out. That would be pretty bad. But even if he loses, I think he just gets taken down, not able to get submissions, not able to get back up and grind it out. So I think even in a losing effort, he shouldn't just get outright smoked.
All right. I'll trust you.
We got to go with it, brother.
Johnny Hendricks makes the team at 7,700.
Yeah, okay. So basically, Johnny Hendricks, I was going to try to play him on a GPP too, and I wouldn't feel that bad playing him on a GPP. However, he's more of a GPP play in that he needs to survive the first round. If he can survive the first round, he can win this fight and even finish this fight. But if he's going to lose this fight, there's a high probability he gets iced in the first round. And having him on a cash game team, you don't want a guy that's going to get iced in the first round.
But you have him anyway.
Yes, I have him anyways, because first of all, as we talked about every episode, we need 2 guys that are sub $800 or $8,000.
Yeah.
2 people that are going to come between that $7,000 to $7,900 range. At $7,700, I'm willing to take Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks is officially making his 185-pound debut. Now, this is very interesting to me because at 33, he's not a guy that doesn't know how to cut weight. I would say he's cut weight his entire adult life, but that's a lie. He's cut weight his entire life. Because when you're wrestling from like 8 years old and they're like, all right, kid, you got to make 42 pounds or something like that, you got to cut the pound. Whatever his case is, he's been wrestling his entire life. It's just that in itself has broken him down. Now that he's older, now that he's just naturally bigger, his bone density is more, he can't make 170 pounds anymore. So his last couple of performances, and he's lost his last 3 in a row to be exact, he's been cutting the weight. He's been either missing the weight or just getting really sick. He's pulled out of fights due to sickness, cutting the weight, and it's just been disastrous for him. His last time out, I saw him in Vegas. He fought Neil Magny. He goes out there. He likely wins the first round with his takedown game. The second round, sorry, my bad. He wins the first round, and then at the end of the first round, he gets caught in a triangle, bombed with elbows, loses the first round. Second round, he gets some takedowns going. He does win the second round. Third round, same thing. The elbows pretty much cost it for him. He loses. This is a terrible slide for him. 3-fight losing streak, unprecedented for your Johnny Hendricks, who had never even been on a 2-fight losing streak. But the move to 185 could be big for him here. Not because, same thing with Gavin Tucker. I'm not saying he's going to be world champion at 185. I'm saying he can at least be a lot better at 185 than he was at 170. And if you're Hector Lombard, a guy that also used to fight at 170, who's now fighting at 185 due to weight cutting issues as well, now you're getting a similar matchup. Hector Lombard, 39 years old, tested positive for steroids in his career, had to take a year off, hasn't quite looked the same since coming back from steroids. And what I mean by that is he got knocked down in his last 2 fights. But in the first round of both of those fights, the guy's dynamite. The guy is unbelievable. They used to call him Lightning Lombard, and I love that name. Now they call him Showweather. That's ridiculous. Lightning Lombard is still there. If Johnny can survive that first round, that initial onslaught, I see him working his way back in. So I think he's way better on a GBP. He really is. And if you're going to play multiple teams, try him on GBP.
Lombard?
Well, you can play him on, if you're going to play different ones.
I was going to say.
But Johnny to just survive and then come back in that second and third and get the win, that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay. Last player.
Last player, we've got Randa Marcos. Now, once again, $7,100, extremely cheap. If Randa loses, she could get submitted, but I don't expect her to. I would expect her to lose a decision. She's a wrestler by trait. That's her background. And against Carla Esparza, who's also a wrestler, that would be her key to victory because Esparza is very much one-trick pony. She's 5'1". She's a very small girl, something like a 63-inch reach. But she's a good wrestler. She wrestled collegiately. Even the gym she's at now, Team Oyama, they have a good crew of guys that she wrestles with, a good crew of girls that she wrestles with, and she beats them all. She's very good in that regard. she relies on that too heavily. She comes into these fights and she has to get the takedown. If she doesn't get the takedown, she has no plan B. Now, that led her to a world title. She won the world title. But she got matched up with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Now, Jędrzejczyk's a Muay Thai stylist. And Jędrzejczyk was a 3-1 underdog going into that fight. That was when I made the most money on Jędrzejczyk. Because Paul was big on Esparza. Everyone was big on Esparza. Because everyone thought, oh, the wrestler's just going to take her down. But Robin Black's a big advocate of this. The game's always changing. And the one thing that seems to change the most rapidly is people are better at stuffing takedowns. And now if you don't have a plan B, if they stuff the takedown, you're in trouble. So she fights Jędrzejczyk. She loses. She gets shoulder surgery. She takes 13 months off. She comes back. And then in her last fight against Juliana Lima, she didn't want to engage striking whatsoever. She shot some sloppy takedowns. They worked. She remained top pretty much the majority of the fight. She gets the decision. She got the win. Since then, she's now taken another bit of a layoff. She comes into this fight against a girl, and Randa Marcos, who knows how to wrestle. So if Randa Marcos, who's not a great striker, but is very aggressive, likes to move forward, is Canadian and is fighting at home, technically speaking here, can go out there, stuff some takedowns, land some shots, pump the crowd up, get people fired up behind her, she can steal this decision.
Well, it seems like you can steal a decision anywhere in the UFC these days.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I had Brunson and I had Holly Holm, but that's not egregious. Those are close fights. Like, I'm not sure if you watched them.
I didn't, but all I know is the reaction was people were not happy.
Yeah, and listen, I should be one of those people that are not happy either. Rap will tell you, had Brunson won and Holm won, then I'd be $3,000 richer. And it didn't play it that way.
I'd be a lot richer, too.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter, because the fact of the matter is they were close fights. There's nothing to freak out about. The term robbery just gets thrown around. If you're Diego Sanchez Ross Pearson, that, my friend, is a robbery. This is a close fight. I expect this to be a close fight. And can she get the nod?
So it could break her way.
Yeah.
And for $7,100, if you get to the decision, can she score a takedown, or is she just going to be stuffing takedowns?
She could score a takedown, but I would think that because Esparza is going to be a tad bit faster, a little bit smaller, that the scramble will allow her to just pop back up. But if she does get taken down herself, and she could get taken down, don't get me wrong, because she's something like a 5'4", just a bigger all-around girl, I expect her to be able to scramble and pop back up. She'll give up some points initially, but in the course of 3 rounds, she might just be able to outwork her.
GPP team, Sarah McMahon leads the way at $9,300.
Yeah, I initially had Felder, but in the grand scheme of things, I really need to save that $200 remainder. So I took Felder off. I went with Sarah McMahon. Sarah McMahon is basically, like, in a lot of people's opinion, the safest play on the whole team. She's currently riding a 2-fight winning streak. She's fought Ronda Rousey for the title, so she's been to the highest level. She's someone who was a silver medalist at the Olympics in freestyle wrestling, first woman to ever capture a silver medal in freestyle Olympic wrestling. So she's been to the highest level. She's very mature in her career, and I think she's really finding in her own groove. She's supposed to take on Liz Carmouche in this spot. And Liz Carmouche is another girl who fought for the title, is a good veteran of the organization, currently on a winning streak. It's a fun little fight that's going to get put together. Liz Carmouche gets injured, and they're like, oh no, we need someone late
So this
notice.
is a replacement fight.
This is a replacement fight. You got Gina Mazzani coming in. Now, Gina Mazzani is initially from Alaska. Her brother, Dave Mazzani, is also...
basically Canadian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know why we ever sold it. Pretty much sold it for nothing, by the way. It's a different story for another time. But Gina Mazzani is Alaskan. So as you're talking about, Far East, well, who does she really have to train with out in Alaska? Now, her brother Dave Mazzani is actually a stud fighter, in my opinion. Good guy. Never made it to the highest levels, but fought good guys. Currently fights in South Africa, but that's not a very good scene. Dave Mazzani, good guy. He leaves Alaska and goes full-time to Extreme Couture in Vegas. He's been living in Vegas for the last number of years. Gina eventually decides, you know what? I want to pursue fighting. I got a connection in Vegas with my brother Dave. I might as well go down to Extreme Couture as well. She travels over and she tries out for the Ultimate Fighter Season 18. On that season, she got paired off in a fight to get into the house with Juliana Pena.
Okay.
Now, as we know with Juliana Pena, she made it. She went on to do good things and headline UFC cards. Juliana Pena fights her in a 2-round exhibition fight. That fight, all 3 judges scored it 20 to 17, meaning that obviously Juliana Pena...
She lost 1 round by a lot.
She got a 10-8 in one of the rounds by all 3 of the judges, right? She got handled in that round. Now, not a big deal. Juliana Pena made it. That's not something to hang your head about. What does she do? She takes 3 years off after that. So it's like, oh, man. So now she fights somebody 3 years later back in Alaska. They're a nobody. She beats them up. She moves back to Vegas. She's a local bartender at a pub in Vegas. Gets this call. Short notice. You want to fight a girl who won a silver medal at the Olympics? Whoa, this is a dream come true for me. You know, I basically just got back.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What am I getting paid? 10, plus we'll throw you an extra 2 because of the short notice, plus you make $2,500 for the Reebok. $15,000. You got yourself a goddamn deal, Rondell, and then you're in. So that's the spot that she's in. The only one tiny concern for me is that in Sarah McMahon's last fight against Alexis Davis was like a career best performance. She submitted her, she dominated her, looked fantastic on the ground, looked confident. She took a series of elbows to the face while she was on top. Like she took her down, she's on top, she's eating some elbows from the Davis who was on the bottom. And between rounds, she told her corner, I can't feel my face. Now her corner was like, okay.
Don't worry about it.
Take her down, pound her out, and we'll figure it out. Takes her down, submits her. It was a good performance. Stuff like that worries me, but that also shows that she's able to overcome some adversity. She wasn't like, oh my God, what is happening right now? I want out of this. She wasn't like, oh my God, I'm tentative now because I don't want to get hit. She was like, I got to take care of business, and she did take care of business. So I do like Sarah McMahon, $9,300. She should be able to get the finish as well, but at worst case scenario, takedown, lots of them, or takedown, positional dominance, ground and pound. Let me tell you, that's been scoring huge these days. Moving on from that, we got $8,800. Aim is a hobby. We already talked about him. He's good. Gavin Tucker, $8,400.
Talked about it.
Yeah, and if you want to switch him off and you want to try to get somebody else in that $8,400 range, that's up to you. Thiago Santos, $8,300. Now, Jack Marshman is as good as a GP play as Thiago Santos, but who do I think is going to win? Thiago Santos. So we'll be rolling with Thiago Santos.
Marshman is $7,900.
$7,900. So once again, if you're looking for the sub $8,000 plays, he might be one of them.
So this is a knockout either way, basically?
Well, this one's very much like you're saying with Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard. You could go Hector Lombard. He has a good shot at winning. I just think Johnny Hendricks is going to prevail here. I think Thiago Santos is the same thing. Jack Marshman is a banger, man. Former Welsh boxer, Welsh boxing champion, boxing in the Army. Been watching this guy for a long time. Let me tell you, hands all day. If you want to get into a stand-up exchange with him for the longest time, you were getting knocked out. So people were like, I'm just going to avoid that. But I keep going back to this fight that he had in Bama against Tom Kong Watson years back. And in that fight was his real first step-up fight. Watson was able to just take the shots, deal with it, tire him out a little bit, hit him with a spinning back elbow, dropped him, knocked him out. Big win for Watson. Since then, he's been exposed a little bit in the sense that he's been knocked out by Abu Azitar in 43 seconds. He got knocked out by Ian Pascu in 2:49 or something like that. But he's been getting knocked out in the first round. So now that he's getting a little bit older, that style of let's make this a big battle, right? It's like, ooh, you can get caught equally as well as they can get caught. So he's well-rounded himself. He's worked on his ground game a lot. But at the end of the day, he is who he is. Now, in his last fight against Magnus Siedenblad, he makes his UFC debut, European card. He technically becomes the first Welshman to ever fight in the UFC, making that walkout. Big moment for him. It's not a favorable matchup for him that Magnus Siedenblad's establishing good. He is the big dog, but this is his UFC debut. He goes down in that first round, and he drops Siedenblad. Now, Siedenblad recovers, literally just gets dropped, pops back up, takes him down. Now, once you're this boxer on your back, he doesn't really have much. He likes to throw up triangles, but triangles don't work in the UFC unless you're world class, right? He throws stuff up, nothing really happens. Siedenblad just grinds him out. Second round, he comes out, and he knocks Siedenblad out. The guy's got power, dynamite, lots of it. But he's fighting a guy in Thiago Santos that very much has the same dynamite. And I think that Santos is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more experienced. He's going to be a little more rangier. His body kick is absolutely just nasty. And if he hits you with the body kick enough times, it's going to cause you to keep your hands down. And then just that one right hand, I think, is enough to put Marshman down. This is basically a coin flip fight. So I don't think that when you're looking at...
So you can play it both sides if you wanted to.
You could play this both sides. And if you actually want to bet money on the straight-up line, Santos is a side... he was minus 160. I see money's coming in on him. But this is a dangerous fight. Santos is a guy that's lost his last two fights, albeit he's lost those fights on the ground. So this should be a stand-up battle which plays into his skill set.
All right, we got like 2 minutes left before we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
We got Travis Brown. Why?
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Well, he's a heavyweight. He's in the main event. He's got 5 rounds to deal with. Derek Lewis has been taken down 21 times in his last 6 fights. I think Brown gets the takedown. Brown, last performance that you can say he looked good in is when he fought Brendan Schaub. He got Schaub down, he mounted him, he punched him out. That's the exact same play to make here. People will say, oh my God, Ronda Rousey's gym, and oh, Edmund Taverdian, and oh, Glendale fight team. Oh, what is going on here? It doesn't matter. He's at Black House right now. I think he's a little more focused than people are giving him credit for. He's still fairly young, I think 33 or 34 years old, 6'7", lots of power. Far more experienced. I think he gets the job done here.
Okay, last player.
Last player, Nordine Taleb, $7,000. I actually only have $100 left on this team, so $7,100 is all I could afford. I took Nordine for $7,000. All I gotta say is I would love to get into great detail, but you say we don't have any time, so I'm just gonna tell you something real fast here, okay? UFC doesn't call him it. Sure Dog, all those websites, they don't call him it. But I used to watch this guy back in the day, and they called him Nordine the Machine Taleb. Only all of his fights were in Quebec, so they called him Nordine Le Machine.
Le Machine?
Le Machine Taleb. Now, I haven't seen Le Machine in a long time. But the last time we saw him fight against Eric Silva, Just look at the way he was built. Look at the way he was stalking. Look at the way he got the KO victory. La Machine was back. If he shows up, he could theoretically beat Ponzinibbio. I don't expect him to, but it's a GPP. He's $7,000. He's got a shot.
If he's going to win, is he going to win by knockout?
It. Probably yes.
Okay.
Yes.
5% chance of that happening?
10% chance of
10%,
that
that's good enough
happening.
for me. All right, Cody Saftic, you can check him out every day on the Fight Network now. If you go to the Fantasy Sports Network, the Fight Network YouTube page, check out the Bookie Beatdown up there too. Full length. Was it
Absolutely.
Like 3 hours long?
Nah, it's usually like an hour and 15. It ranges between there.
Far more comprehensive than this. Slightly more comprehensive.
Well, we dig into why they call him La Machine, but yes, I feel
Oh, you do?
Nah, we talk about
Is
an hour long.
Is he Francais?
He's from France, and then his whole career has been in
Does he
Quebec.
come out smoking a skinny cigarette to the ring?
I said he was from France, didn't I?
So obviously, yes, of course.
Duh.
I'm an idiot. Sorry. You can subscribe to the Bookie Beatdown on Podomatic, iTunes, or again for the video version up on the Fight Network YouTube page. For the Pat Mayo Hour, you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Podomatic, Audio Boom, and iHeartRadio for the video versions. Always uncut and uncensored up on the Fantasy Sports Network and Fight Network YouTube pages. I'm Pat Mayo. Follow me on Twitter @ThePME, and that'll do it. Good luck this week. I'll see you next time.